So now we'll just start with RxJS. So before okay, fine. We'll just start with exactly what exactly is RxJS. So RxJS is nothing but it stands for Reactive Extension API. It is called as a Reactive Extension API, and JS refers to JavaScript. That is Reactive Extension API, which is implementing the JavaScript. Or you can just tell that JavaScript is being implemented by Reactive Extension API. So what is the use of this particular API and why are we using this API? So this particular API RxJS is not only used in Angular, it is supporting all the JavaScript frameworks like React, Express.js, Node.js, AngularJS, then Backbone.js, and Extend.js. So all these things are supported by RxJS. But the advantages in Angular is RxJS is inbuilt. So we have RxJS within Angular. So we need not install this particular library, or we need not call this particular library as an external framework or something like that, because this has been incorporated along with our Angular applications. So let me just open this. And the next thing is this particular API is asynchronous programming, so that it will try to once the request has been sent, it waits for a duration of time for the particular request. So now I told you that it has been inbuilt within our application. You can just see that when I just go to Angular, that is angular.json and package.json, you can just check this particular one that it has been inbuilt with this. So you can just see here, and I go to package.json, you can just see RxJS. So this is inbuilt for the dependencies. You can just see that RxJS is there. So it is used within the application itself. And it is asynchronous programming with observable data stream. So it is having a data stream which can be observed. So what exactly is this particular observable data stream? Or data stream is nothing but it is data which is streaming, which we will be streaming it continuously for a certain duration of time, if it is being specified or something like that, based upon certain conditions or something like that. So, and where exactly we can just implement this RxJS is this particular RxJS, it provides a single API which will help us to deal with the data which is coming from multiple sources over a period of time. So you are getting the data from different sources over a period of time. So you do not know when exactly that particular data is being coming. So you would like to stream that particular data. So in that case, you can just use this RxJS. And the data which is continuously coming from the application is nothing but it is called as a data stream. So now I'll just give you one example. So now we have a Gmail account. So let us assume that in a Gmail account, so the concept here is in a Gmail account, we do not know there is a continuous data which is streaming into that application, that is Gmail application. So what is that particular data that has been continuously coming? So now once the data is coming to the Gmail account, that particular Gmail account, it should verify that when the data is coming into the Gmail account, you need to verify that whether that particular user is already existing or not. If that particular user is existing, it should not register that particular user. Okay, once the user has been registered successfully, then it should send some message. So continuously the data is coming. So when the data is coming, we are not aware of it. So when exactly the data is coming, when new user is trying to register it, this data is being streaming into the application. So we do not know whether the data is continuously streaming or there is a gap of some duration of intervals or something like that. So now this particular data is being streaming. So now when the data is streaming, there is something where exactly you need to identify what sort of data is being streaming. The data may be asynchronous data, or it can be asynchronous data, or you are getting that particular data by some HTTP calls by using get or post methods, or you are using some DOM elements based upon certain event. When you click on a button, the data is being streaming, or you have some functions, you are trying to execute that particular function and the function is returning some value, that data you are going to stream. So we are not aware of what data is going to come in. That part of the data is nothing but it is a data streaming. So to absorb that data, whatever is the data you are getting as an input, take that particular data, do some process, okay, do some process and return some value to that particular one. So that is where exactly RxJS is used, that is reactive extension. So it is data is streaming it and we are trying to process that particular data which is going to stream. So that is exactly where you can just use the concept of RxJS. Okay, so now this data, whatever is being processed, okay, they are processed differently in JavaScript with different process. So it can be asynchronous data calls and it may be promises, or it can be based upon the DOM events, where that is when you click on a button or when you are selecting something, or it may be an array of data which you are trying to get. So based on all these things, you will be able to stream that data and process it. So, but in RxJS, what exactly is happening is the entire data is being absorbed and is being processed by a single API. Okay, so the entire data has been processed by single API and we call this particular one as observables. So we call this as observables. So this is defined from a pattern. So how is this observable defined? It has been defined by a pattern which is called as observer development pattern. So this is the pattern which it is using. So you can just see this particular diagram. So when in this particular diagram, so let us, for example, for time being, let us take that this is a subject which is getting the data from different sources. So this particular subject is getting the data from different sources. So once the subject is getting the data from different sources, now what exactly is happening is this particular data, it should be streamed. It means it should perform some particular task. So that particular data, whatever I'm getting, it should perform some task. So now I'll just take a Gmail only. So the users are going on registering it. So you're getting, the subject is getting the data here. So once the data is been coming here, what is this is doing? It is trying to check whether that particular user is already existing or not. So that is being not observer is there. So what exactly it is sending to the observers? So what is that observer is doing? There is one observer. When the data is coming, this particular subject is sending the notification to observer one, saying that to check whether the username is existing or not. Okay, so now this observer is what it is doing. Whenever a new user is trying to register, immediately that data is being sent to the observer one. What is observer one is doing? It is checking whether the user is existing or not, only that much. Then the second observer, what exactly is doing? If the user is existing, that is, if already, then once it is being registered, so it should notify that that particular user is registered and it should just send one welcome email to that particular user. So that is what it is streaming that particular data and just trying to check whether that particular user has been registered successfully or not. If it is registered, then it is just sending a welcome message. Then the third one is whenever the user is been registering, okay, so it is trying to perform certain process. So how are these observers are getting the data? The observers are getting the data from the subject. So after getting that particular data, so how they are getting, so how is the subject able to identify and the observer is able to identify that only this particular data I need? That is by using, they are going to subscribe to this. So a notification is sent. So that is where it is called as subscription. So we called it as once they subscribe it, then they'll be able to use, then they'll be able to get that particular information. So the another example. So now you go to YouTube. Okay, so when you go to YouTube, you are seeing some channel. They will tell, click on this bell icon, share it, subscribe it. Why is it? They're asking us to subscribe. Why? Because once they upload the data, that is one that is, so YouTube is nothing but it is data streaming only. So YouTube is using the concept of RxJS. So once you subscribe, what exactly is happening? That whenever the user, the end user, that person, he is trying to upload the videos, that particular video is being sent to you. That is, you are getting a notification that X has been uploaded the videos. So how, since you have subscribed it, you are getting the information. If you don't subscribe, you will not get that notification. So the notification is sent only to the viewers who have subscribed that particular channel. So now here, what is that? Which is the one which is working as a subscribe, and then observer? Who is the observer? That you are trying to retrieve the information. So why? To that particular channel. So that is where exactly here you are using. So now here the subject is nothing but it is treated as observers. The subject maintains a list of observers. So based upon the list of observers, whoever is maintaining the data has been streaming into their respective observers. We'll see how to write the program and all for this. You're getting the concept?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now this particular subject is emitting all the information. The emitted information is sent to the respective observers. Why? Because all these observers are subscribed to this particular subject. Okay, so this subject is emitting the data. So this is only emitting the data, and this observer, based upon the data, it is doing the process, and then it is returning the value. That is, again, it is returning back the observers. So RxJS supports this observer pattern, where a single subject broadcasts a value of multiple observers. So where a single subject is broadcasting a most of the data to different observers. So in this pattern, RxJS is working. So it takes that data, it gets the data, the data is streamed, and then the subject is trying to observe which are the observers who are subscribed. So based upon the subscription, it is sending the notification. The observer is taking the data, doing some business logic, executing some business logic there, and then it is sending the information, the output you're getting. So that is how exactly this RxJS is working here. So now in this part of this, you can just see here. So here in RxJS, when you are using in this RxJS part of it, there is slightly the subject, we don't call it a subject as far as Angular is concerned. The subject is called as observable. We call it as observable. So this part of it is called as observable in our Angular. So which pushes the value to the observer. So now I'll just tell you what exactly is. So now this is the observables. Okay, so this part of it has been the observables. So what is that observable will be having? It is having the data. The data has been streamed into this particular observable. So what exactly the observable will be doing? The observer will be notifying the observer. The observer will be notifying the observer. So now how is that observer will be getting this particular data? Only if this particular observer is being subscribed with this particular observables, then only he will be getting the data. So now who is this? Okay, just okay, fine. I will just take this as, for example, this is a walking tree. Walking tree is observables. Okay, so here Sunita is an observer. Okay, so now if I want to take this training for the employees of walking tree, then what I need to do is I need to, as an observer, I need to subscribe for that walking tree. Only when I subscribe, then walking tree will be able to contact me to give the information about that there is a training offer. Okay, so then I will be able to take the training. Understood this part of it?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
here,
ma'am.
who is the observable? Observable is the walking tree. observer is Sunita. So now I need to subscribe. When I subscribe, then only walking tree will give me the data. What is the data? That is the training offer. Okay, so when I am using this observable, so I do not know what is the data I am getting. So I do not know when I started talking to walking tree. This is the first time I'm talking to walking tree. I do not know who is working there and what it is. How many participants will be coming for attending the training? No information to me. So now that data, after I subscribed, I got that information. Now the data, that is, there are 14 participants. So 14 participants are there. I came to know only when after I subscribed it. So now I want one by one. So what I'll do is I'll just use next method. So next Bagel, next after Bagel it is Gupta, after the Gupta it is Pratik, after that Meenakshi, like that one by one. The next method will allow me to get the information one after the other. Data, I am just going to stream that particular data. In case if there is some any error, then this error method will come into consideration. If after that, after the 14 participants I have retrieved it, then my observation is been completed. So I'll use the complete method. So once I use the complete method, I have streamed all the entire data. So now you understood how is it working? So yes, any queries?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so this is how exactly this RxJS is working. So you only this much, this is how exactly it is working, but there are plenty of methods which are being used. So I'll just explain you what is the difference between a function and an observer, so that you'll come to know that most of the time we will be using this particular concept when you are trying to write the programs. Okay, that is when you are trying to implement that. Instead of functions, this is the better way where you can just use it. So whenever observable wants to send the data, it calls the next method. So whenever I want the data, I will be just using the next method, so that the next method will be providing the next the data. Okay, when if any error occurs, I'll come into consideration about this error. So once I finish sending, then I'll tell complete. So main thing is you need to know where exactly is observables. Observables is nothing but where exactly you have the data. Then observer is the one which is trying to retrieve the data. So when the observer will be able to retrieve the data only when the when he subscribes to this particular observable, then only the observer will get the data from the observables. It is simple. So you can just think like that. Observables is having the list of employees. Now I want to fetch the list of all the employees. To retrieve all the employee details, the observer want to retrieve all the employee details. So if they want to observe all the details, he should subscribe to this. Once he subscribes, then this observer will send the data. So when he is sending the data, this observer will use next method to retrieve one by one. Once he completes, any errors are there, it will execute this. Once he completes retrieving all the employee details, then the observer will tell, yes, I have completed it. This is how exactly the process of RxJS works. So for this, you have number of operators. So what are the operators here? Operators are nothing but they are the functions which will help us to configure the data and return the function. So these are the operators which will help us to operate on this. So what they are doing, these functions are these operators, they are taking the observable and returning a new one. So it is returning a new observable. So in that there are two types. One is pipe operator and the other one is creation operator. Creation operators are used to create the observables. Pipe operators, these pipe operators are functions which will help you to take the input and return another observable. So it is just simple that you need to use pipe operator to observe the input and the return value will be again observable only. So that is where exactly you will be using the pipe operators. So for this, there are huge number of operators. So what you need to do is